So let's go on to gameplay. It is a JRPG, but it does not have random battles, which is pretty cool.
If you want to avoid the enemies, you have the option to do so. Some of them will still follow you to the end of the earth.
Yes. And how you approach the enemies also affects the battle. So if they approach you versus you approaching them, if you sprint into them, it may give you an advantage or a disadvantage, which is a nice little strategy element. I do appreciate that. And it also has a countdown timer for the HP. If you get hit, there's still time to give your enemy a little bit of health, give them a little bit of life to boost them back up so they don't die.
But other than that, the battle system itself is pretty typical. It does have sort of a rhythm combination component.
If you attack to the rhythm of the music, then you can kind of multiply your attacks to a little bit of a combination, I guess.
And it's not a world changer,
no,
but it does add a little bit of a wrinkle that makes the battles a little bit more interesting. I do find it seemed a little touchy.
A little bit touchy indeed. I could never really consistently do it. Even if it was the same song and I tried to do it in the same way, it was still kind of difficult to do. I made it work a couple of times, but not that often. So are we satisfied with the gameplay overall, or how do we feel about the gameplay?
I don't have super strong feelings toward it. I've definitely played more interesting RPGs.
I also felt that the difficulty was pretty decent as well. It wasn't incredibly hard, but it did make me grind a little bit to earn some of those boss battles.
I thought it was a little better balanced than Earthbound was, because I felt like there were times, namely like the Kraken in Earthbound, I felt just like you had a little bit of a difficulty curve and then it was like, whoa! You're dealing with that now. And I felt like Mother 3 had a little bit better of a balance.
Balanced it out a little bit. Sure, absolutely. So, taking a look at this presentation here, the biggest qualm that I had originally with this when I loaded it up was that I felt that I was cheated out of the 3D experience that the N64 would have given me. I'd rather just play this game, at least I thought, in 3D.
Yeah, for me that wasn't that big of a thing because the 64 was never that good to RPGs. Yes, it's early footage, but there was a lack of detail and sort of emotionality to a lot of the stuff that I saw of Earthbound 64, but I also did see some stuff that did make it look like there was a little bit more you could have done with the game, too.
Yeah, I mean, the details on the faces, I think, were really, really good, and I think if they would have done the cinematics properly, I think it could have been a very emotional game for the 64. But, I don't know, like, I think that some of it looks really good. Like, when they're tripping out on mushrooms, I think that looks really good. When he's in the field of sunflowers, I believe, I think that looks really good.
And going sort of off that point, I feel like a lot of where this game goes wrong in presentation has less to do with being in 2D as opposed to 3D, and more to just not using the 2D to the maximum of its potential.
Yes.
Because the flower field does look good. The scene with the airship and hanging off with the snake looks really good, but for the most part the game sticks so much to the top-down viewpoint that it limits the emotional potential, I feel. Now
let's take a look at a few scenes from Earthbound 64. Here we have Hinawa looking at the two boys after she's died. There's a little bit of a flashback. It's supposed to be a sentimental moment. So you can see here that they're very close, it's very intimate. Let's take a look at the same scene on the Game Boy Advance. It's distant. I don't feel close to her. I know the game is trying to make me feel close, I just don't feel that way. But you could have the same sort of profile shot in 2D on the Game Boy Advance. You really could. It didn't have to be 3D.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a really good look of what you can do with sort of a minimal presentation. I mean, the faces can't show the depth of emotion that a real face can. But just by changing up the angle, having her position like that, having the kids positioned as they are, it adds so much more than what we get in this scene in Mother 3.
The presentation was vivid, but the variety, I would say, was dull.
I would agree with that.
What about the music? How do you feel about the music?
Music for me, it was pretty good. It suffers a lot from Earthbound syndrome in that there are a couple of tracks that I really love. A lot of tracks that I just have no opinion on because they're just sort of in one ear out the other. And then there are a lot of tracks that are just trying so hard to be so weird that I just am like, eh.
Yeah. Let's take a listen to the love theme here. It's a great song. I like it quite a bit. It normally plays when they're referencing the family. And I just wish that all the songs were this good. I feel that a lot of them are like okay, and they're very serviceable, they're very satisfactory. Some of the battle music is very good, but not all the songs really reach that greatness that you would find from like a Chrono Trigger or Secret of Mana or a Final Fantasy.
Right, and I don't expect greatness across the board, but I just wish more of the tunes got at or close to that level. Exactly. Too much of it was just very nondescript to me.
Exactly, I would definitely agree. So what is our overall rating for this game? What do you think?
For me, I'd say a solid 8, and it's one of those things where I feel like every component across the board was an 8. Just nothing really disappointed me. I was never angry with the game for being so unbearably terrible in any component, but nothing really wowed me either.
Okay. I would give it like an 8.5, just a touch higher. I think it was a fun and almost epic game. I think parts of it were epic, but not all of it. It was dark, it was emotional, it was funny. I just think that was a little bit too expositional at times, telling me that I needed to care instead of showing me that I needed to care. But again, I'm being a little harsh because it's Mother 3. I think it was a very good game. 8.5 is a solid score, as is 8.
And the game needs to be applauded for trying something different.
Absolutely.
It's a genre that is filled with the same old, and it did try something different. I never felt like everything quite came together, but it still definitely tried some new things.
Oh, certainly. What would we prefer? That's a big question. Earthbound 64 or Mother 3? So, you know, let's take a look at a couple of comparison shots here. Obviously, we have a lot of scenes that were taken directly from Earthbound 64. And we also talked about how a lot of the cinematics of the Drago kind of turning around the rock and Flint realizing it was mechanized. That's just a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more in your face, a little bit more interesting than the way it was portrayed in the Game Boy Advance version. So what do you think overall?
For me personally, I'm okay with having the Game Boy version. I wish they would have done more with the 2D, but I'm not that heartbroken about not having it on the N64 because, as I've said, I just was never all that impressed with the way that N64 did RPGs.
Okay. I think I agree with that. I think that it also kind of got an unfair shake when it came to the RPG department. I think it was RPG starved and could have really used Earthbound 64. I think it's interesting that Flint seemingly was a more important character. As you can see here, they're all jumping on board this ship, and you can see Flint jumping on board as well, and Princess Kumatora is not there, but in the Game Boy Advance game, she is. So I think that he was a little bit more involved.
Yeah,
which
and
I think would have made it a little bit
having,
stronger.
I think having Flint there, as big of a scene as him going crazy was in Mother 3, and as powerful as that was, I feel like having him around longer to have that family connection, because really, Lucas doesn't have that family connection at all throughout the game, and it's such a big part of the game. I feel like having Flint around would have really made that stronger.
Absolutely, and I feel that, you know, Mother 3 was kind of a cutesy game, and I think that maybe some of the darkness would have been better served on the N64. At the same time, I think that a lot of Earthbound fans would have been disappointed, because I feel that they kind of appreciated and wanted more of that cartoony feel that you got from the original Earthbound, which makes sense too. I can understand that.
Yeah, and the limitations of the N64, there were certainly limitations to the 3D, but it was limited in such a way that you couldn't really pull off that Earthboundy look.
Yes. Mr. Itoy had mentioned that he wanted Earthbound 64 to be darker, and he wanted the ending to be a little bit more ambiguous with no dialogue and just overall a little bit creepier. So how do you think that would have affected the game? Do you think that would have been a good thing, a bad thing, indifferent?
As far as the ending specifically goes, I think Mr. Itoi is absolutely off his rocker. I don't think any more ambiguity would have helped. The ending to Earthbound itself was pretty ambiguous, and I don't know that I ever quite gelled with that, but a lot of people like it, so I'm not going to trash it too much. But that's a good question. I feel like I said before, I don't feel like the quirky, dark juxtaposition is a bad thing. I think it's helpful. It helps the game not get so dreary because so much bad happens at the very beginning that I feel like having some of the lighter side helps build some pathos for these characters that just seem so down.
Yes, yes. So that's pretty much Mother 3 and Earthbound 64. I hope you enjoyed the episode, guys.
Yeah, but don't take our word for it. We've left the link for the translation patch in the description down there. Go take yourself a look. Don't forget to like us on Twitter and twat us on Twitter. I think I said Twitter twice and not Facebook once.
Thanks for watching the episode, and don't forget to subscribe to us, like us on Facebook, and fan us on Twitter. And if you like the graphic design, animations, and illustrations that we use in our episodes, make sure to check out our graphic designer's website, animatelpine.com. The link is in the description below.